So thank you for joining. Normal house rules, keep your microphone muted unless you've got a question. You can hit the raise button at the top of your screen or type it into the chat. Either way, we'll pick it up. And we are recording this, so if you miss anything, we'll send the recording out to you. If you've got colleagues who couldn't make the call, share it with them. So a quick introduction. My name's Alistair Walton. I'm the chairman of BRBA. It's the brokers part of British Marine. And we're running this as the third or fourth in our autumn webinar series for brokers and dealers. And this year, as a special one-off, we've partnered up with our friends at ABYA to ensure that the messages that we're trying to get out of the updates, we want to deliver our spread as far across the industry as we possibly can. It's a great partnership with ABYA. It's led to a rebirth of the professional yacht brokers course, the fifth one of those, of which will be in March. There are a few spaces left, and behind the scenes we're working on an extension of that course to become a qualification for yacht brokers that we announced at the boat show last year, and there was an update at the show this year, so stand by for further announcements on that. When we were chatting about what to do with this webinar series, it was pretty clear that KYC and anti-money laundering legislation and guidance was a hot topic. Our friends at ABYA have partnered with SmartSearch and have done for quite a while, a service available to us as professional yacht brokers. And so delighted to welcome Sarah to the call to talk about what SmartSearch does. It's an increasing challenge for all of us, particularly as the banks get more and more interested about what we're up to and client accounts get harder to manage. So I'm going to let Karen do give a little introduction as to how SmartSearch came about, and then Sarah's going to take the floor. So Karen, over to you.
Thanks, Alistair. For those who don't know me, I'm Karen Wilson and I'm the CEO of ABYA. ABYA recognised a good 2-3 years ago how much it was becoming more and more challenging to get pooled client accounts. So ABYA redid our code of practice to a standard where we were able to ensure the banks were in support of giving our brokers a pooled client account. But part of that condition was that we have a robust anti-money laundering system in place. And so we did some research and were able to, we had some long discussions and worked out a really good partnership with SmartSearch. We've been partners with SmartSearch now for just over 3 years, and we work together to ensure that as brokers you are covered for all of your anti-money laundering checks, KYC, and anything else that is associated with ensuring you've got the most pertinent and up-to-date information on your clients. SmartSearch are a robust and well thought of business within the industry, within their industry. So it's a really great partnership that we've been able to cultivate. So I'm not going to waffle on anymore. I'm going to let Sarah let you know exactly what they do, how they do it, and why it's so important to your everyday job, and why it will help you with the bank specifically to get your pooled client account. Okay. So again, just as Alistair said, this will be recorded. So for those who aren't able to attend it, or you need extra backup afterwards with the extra questions, we will have that available to you. Sarah, just can you confirm whether you'd like questions as they come up, or do you want people to save them to the end?
It might be easier because I might cover something that's, a query that somebody has. So if we leave it to the end, we'll know that I'm definitely not going to cover it at a later point, and then we can bring it up. Maybe that some people have common questions.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Alistair. It's over to you.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you all. So my name's Sarah Marriott. I work for SmartSearch in our partnerships team, as we have partnered with ABYA. And as I say, it's a delight to meet you all. Today, I want to speak to you about SmartSearch, what we do, how we enable ABYA clients, but also others to meet their compliance requirements, depending on what they are. So I'm going to go through that, the legal requirements. So it may be that as a member of ABYA, you don't meet the quite requirements to be a HVD, a high value dealer, but there is the legislation that is pertinent about anti-money laundering and knowing who your customers are. So that I'm going to cover, but then explain about how we can help. So I'm going to do a quick demo of our system, how it works, how quick and easy it is, because it is honestly quick and easy, and how it will help you get this information that you require to make sure that your business is protected from reputational damage, financial fines, and everything else that could come with it. And then a Q&A at the end. So if I just move to the next slide. So who is SmartSearch? So we are an industry-leading AML digital compliance technology company. We have over 7,000 firms as clients of ours and 60,000 users across multiple regulated sectors. We work with other partners, financial sector, in high value dealers, in property, in legal. So we have a really good covering of what is required, not just focusing in on one sector too much, but generally what is the wider community needing when it comes to being able to fulfill KYC and AML requirements. We are a multi-award winning and a tech-driven RegTech leader with nearly 200 employees. We're based up near Leeds in Ilkley, so we are up here in the north. And yeah, the company has been growing massively. So we had investment from triple private equity in 2024, which has massively boosted the business. The aim is to accelerate growth and enterprise market expansion. And as a result, we've seen the company blossom. We currently have I believe it's a 30% market share, but we have announced that we are acquiring another company, probably to be completed in the new year, called Credus, which will mean that we probably have close to a 50% market share. We are recognized as one of the fastest growing RegTech companies, and we have been called a long-term growth champion by the Financial Times, but we are committed to scaling, to providing what our clients need, regardless of size, regardless of sector, being there and making sure that you have the services so that you have peace of mind more than anything. So SmartSearch has multiple solutions. So we can help you work with customers or businesses, either in the UK or internationally. We have a range of other things such as document verification services. We also have just introduced a source of funds. We have a single API solution. So that means that anybody who works with a CRM, we can be integrated into that. We currently are integrated into just under 30 CRMs. So we have quite a range, and that is growing all the time. Our automatic checks. So we can reduce false positives by considerable amount. When talking about sanctioned persons, for example, we have ways of filtering out people who aren't relevant so that we can reduce the amount of manual effort down by up to 97%. It sounds like a big number, but honestly, I've seen it one today. It is very frequently over 95% that is just automatically marked as not your client, nothing you need to worry about, and you'll never need to look at it, but it will be there as a full audit trail should you ever need it. We are multi-bureau, so we work with a variety of data providers. That includes Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. We work with LSEG, it's the London Stock Exchange Group, Dow Jones, CreditSafe, a wide variety of companies to help bring all this together but not just bringing the information together, make it easy to quick to do and easy and quick to read. Our automation also means that, as it says, 99% of checks are just resolved, which means no manual input, no need to do extra checks, you just get the result. And we also have ongoing support. So there is a email address, partnerships@smartsearch.com. If you ever have any queries or questions, please feel free to send them into that, and we will jump on it and get you the answers that you need. As I say, we do work with our best of breed providers. We pride ourselves in working with those that will get you the right information. So it will mean that it's done quickly and efficiently, and from people the sources that you can trust, that you know are legitimate and work with the banks. It's exactly who the banks use, so that you can feel covered and safe. So this is a brief overview of what the services are that we offer. So we have a UK individual AML, which is a name and address verification. We do PEP and sanction checks. They are included in all of our services. We also have SmartDoc, which is document verification. We do international business, UK business. We can do risk assessments. So there's a wide variety that we can do. I'm just going to skim over those now, but we'll show a demo later with a couple of the services in. If you do want any more information on any of these, please feel free to reach out, and I'm more than happy to help provide you with any extra information you'd like. So the yacht industry and money laundering. Yachts are symbols of wealth, and international watchdogs do consider them and the yachting industry to be really attractive for money laundering. This is because they can be owned by a shell company, technically, and put under a convenient flag, have high value, and can easily be moved between ports and also into international waters, which can make tracing owners difficult. There was a Monaco study found that 1 in 8 yacht owners are PEPs, which means politically exposed persons. Politically exposed persons are what they sound like, those who are connected to politics. And as a result, they're a higher risk of fraud. That's just because their information is easier to find than the person who you live next door to. So examples, the Equanimity, GQ Sport, that yacht with a stolen $250 million from Malaysia's fund, and the Indian Empress, which was seized when the owner, Vijay Mallya, was accused of fraud and money laundering. These are big examples, but they do also happen on a much smaller scale as well. So how can AML checks help your business? So number one, it will protect your business. If you're dealing with either illicit funds or criminal property, whether knowingly or not, you could still have legal and financial consequences. They do consider that if there were reasonable steps to take, but you didn't take them, then it's as good as knowingly working with this. It helps protect your reputation. Reputational damage is a significant issue. Everything nowadays is reported online or in the newspapers. People do look up the companies they work with. We all know we've looked for reviews online before going to a restaurant or something, but before making a big purchase, the same thing happens, and these kinds of things do get reported. We have seen in the past few months, there was an estate agent who sold a house to somebody who was a convicted terrorist. That was reported in the press, including the name of the estate agent, and that will have caused probably significant damage. Giving your clients confidence you're following best practice. Clients want to work with trustworthy companies. They're dealing with potentially significant money transactions, so they want to have that reassurance that the companies they're working with follow best practice and are safe to work with. And also avoiding criminal and civil penalties. So I'll go through the legislation in just a moment, but there are both potential penalties, criminal and civil alike, which could affect both as an individual or a business. And naturally, those are the ones we want to avoid. So by following ABYA guidelines, you don't need to register with HMRC as a high value dealer because you're not dealing with cash transactions. That means then if you're not classified as a high value dealer, the money laundering regulations 2017 don't apply, generally speaking. But there is other relevant legislation that does. So the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 requires a legal obligation to report any suspicion of money laundering. That created 3 criminal offences, which is to do with acquisition, transfer, use of criminal property. And the penalty for that is up to 5 years imprisonment and or an unlimited fine. And the Sanctions Act 2018, which makes receiving payments from a UK or UN sanctioned person or a sanctioned owner, ultimate beneficial owner of a business, also a crime. So sanctions is something that honestly even I hadn't heard of until the invasion of Ukraine. We started hearing about quite a significant number of people from Russia being sanctioned. It means if you have a financial sanction, you cannot work with those persons. You cannot take money from them. You cannot send them money. You cannot have any business transactions with them at all. This does not have strict liability. So it doesn't matter if a search wasn't done and you didn't know they were sanctioned. That may be taken into consideration when it comes to the penalties, but it has no impact on whether or not they will apply. The criminal penalty is up to 7 years imprisonment and unlimited fines, and the civil penalty is a fine, either £1 million or 50% of the funds involved, whichever is larger, and being publicly named. So how can we help you at SmartSearch meet these requirements? What you decide to do in terms of your policies is down to yourselves. It's down to yourselves and your appointed MLRO on a risk-based approach, what you feel is appropriate. The legislation does give guidance on what to do, and if you're ever unsure, it's a really good point to default. It's all available online, and sometimes it may seem that the language is really, really wordy, but when you read it, it's not too bad. So for individuals, when you're dealing with them, do you know who that person is? Not just who they say they are, but actually who they are. Do you have any reason to believe that they're using criminal property, assets, or funds? And are they sanctioned? For businesses, do you know who the ultimate beneficial owner is? So it means the person who may own the business, who owns the business of the one you're working with. Do you have any reason to believe they're using criminal property? And is the business themselves or the owner sanctioned? Both businesses and individuals can be sanctioned. So I'm just going to take you now through a quick demo of our system. I'm just stop sharing my screen while I move this over and show you what we have available and what can be used. So when I've referred to sanctioned persons or sanctioned PEP and sanction screening, I'll show you an example of that while I look at the UK individual check. That is a name and address verification. And what that does is it confirms that the person you're dealing with is actually a person. It does this by referring to the credit reference agencies and checking that somebody has a credit file that connects their name and their address. Every service that we have on here, except for source of funds, includes the sanction screening. So it will be done automatically. So if we were going to do a UK individual check, this is what our dashboard looks like. So it's nice and easy to see what the different tiles are for the different services available. If you're dealing with a UK resident, this is the one you would choose. If you're dealing with somebody who isn't a UK resident, but is somebody that you happen to work with, you want to check, we do have an international individual check, which covers 47 countries. It does the same sort of thing. However, the information that we get back can vary a bit depending on which country it is and what their data privacy laws are like, what their requirements of recording persons is like. If we're going to do a UK individual check, the information you need is really simple. It is just the name and the address. So I'm just going to input a test person here. We do recommend including a date of birth if you have it, just because it does do a check within the search to see if that credit file matches this date of birth. So it's an extra search within a search, basically. And also we have postcode lookup both for the UK and internationally, which means it's super easy to input. There's a couple of search options. There's no difference in terms of like cost or anything like that. The difference is how high the bar is set to get a pass result. So for a normal risk, we need to find 2 pieces of data, and for a high risk, we need 3.
Sarah, sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if you're on a different screen from the one we're looking at. We're seeing your menu page currently, rather than a search page.
Sorry, let me just... Can you see it okay?
Looks good, Sarah.
Perfect. Fantastic. We're up and running again. So apologies if you didn't see it before. This is what the screen looks like for a UK individual. So the information that we need is just the name, so title, first name, last name, and the address. Date of birth is useful to include, but isn't strictly necessary. But if you follow the thing that red asterisks mean required fields, then you're golden. And here we have the risk options. So whichever you choose is down to your own risk policies, whichever you feel like is the most appropriate. But we'll say normal requires 2 pieces of data to get a pass result. High requires 3, and there is no difference in cost or anything for those. So once you input those, all you have to do is click results. Within a few seconds, it will come back with the result. So we can see this one's a pass. A nice big green box to indicate that. And we have this little banner saying that all due diligence checks have passed. That means about the PEP and sanction screening. So that means nothing has been found. I will go through another person in a moment just to show you what it looks like on ours when they do find, and what that means, what you can see, and what needs to be reviewed at that point. But a green box means a pass. If it was amber, it would be a refer, so we wouldn't be able to find enough information. And if it was red, it would mean that the search had failed. There's no cost for failed searches because they've never gone through. And here we can see that we've found 6 pieces of information from 5 sources dating back 8 years, which connect this name and this address. So what are we looking for with this? It's basically anything that's on your credit file that has a name and address. So mortgage, leases, utility bills, telecommunications, voters roll, anything like that. It doesn't provide like invasive data or anything. We can see what kind of data it is and when it dates from, but that's it. But here we have more than the 2 we need. So we've got a pass. We know that this person is a person. They have a credit file, they have existed. We have further information down here. So I included the date of birth incorrectly just to show you what this fail looks like. And also it has information on the credit reference agency that was used. And at the bottom, we have what we call warnings. They don't affect the check, they don't affect the result, but it's information to give you a holistic view. So deceased check has the person been registered as being deceased with that name and address? And potential fraud alert will look at the address. Is that not a residential address? Is it actually commercial? Is it a PO box? Does it have mail forwarding? Anything like that. Now, both can flag up false positives, which is why we don't use them to affect the result. But that isn't overly common. It is there, though, so that you have the best possible view of the person that you're working with, so you can ask any questions so that you feel secure in working with them. And then the whole thing is available in a PDF report. So this report is one that you can download, save, print, however you prefer to do this. But it will have all the information on. And should you ever need to show this for any reason, you have the proof here that you've done the search, the date that you've done the search, and also that you checked to see if the person was politically exposed, A relative or close associate is somebody associated with a political person. So, for instance, Boris Johnson's children. Special interest person is anyone who's been connected to serious financial crime, fraud, embezzlement, drug smuggling, things like that. And then the sanctions, which is probably one of the key ones. These first three categories you can work with. They're at high risk of fraud, but you absolutely can work with them. It's down to whether you feel is appropriate in the situation. But a sanctioned person is, well, as we went through before, we wouldn't advise working with them. And then all the rest of the information is held on here. So that is the UK individual. It is quite a really straightforward and simple result. But that is when everything goes to plan. So what about when somebody shows up who isn't recognized and who does flag up as being on the sanctions list? So if I input somebody we all know oh so well, who we know will flag, and then if I just put him in purposely at the wrong address. So when this one shows up, it will be amber, indicating that we haven't been able to find the information to connect the name and address. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't exist. It just means that we haven't been able to connect them. You probably want to speak to them, maybe refer to another check. It could be that they've recently moved and their credit file hasn't been updated, for example, or there has been something wrong input about the name of the address. But we do have a very high pass rate because we work with multiple bureaus. So everything else here is the same, except it's zeros and nos. But the due diligence, which is the sanction screening, is the key here. And it will always flag up with a big orange banner if anything has been found. And it's easy to view, but just view outstanding. So the problem with sanctioned lists and watch lists is that they are name match only. This means that for certain names, you can get a lot of potential matches. To reduce this as much as possible, we have built in what we call suppressions or filters. That means that anybody who has a date of birth that doesn't match the person you input can be automatically excluded as not your client, and anybody with the wrong country of residency can be automatically excluded as not your client. We find that can reduce the amount you actually need to look at by 99%. So it will reduce a large swathe of them. If that did happen, it would be like this first one here. Sorry, this one below. This one's been marked automatically to say that the name match we found is not the person we know. And that's because the country of residency here doesn't match the country that I input for the address. So as this is a US resident and it's a UK address, it's just marked it as no. You'll never have to work that. You won't have to look at it, review it, but it's there in case you ever do need to refer to it for audits or anything in the future. The key bit of this is any that are totally grayed out, because you want to see if this person that you're dealing with is the right person. Now, in this case, it is a pet, so politically exposed, but it could be a sanctioned person, in which case, this is really important. There's a little bit of information here, but it's not overly, there's not a lot. So to make sure that you have the information that you need to determine if it is or isn't your client or your customer, we have all the information that the watch list holds. In this indication, that means images, aliases, descriptions, country associations, occupations, dates, birthplace. If they were on a sanctioned list, it would tell you which sanctioned list, profile notes, even associated persons. So there can be a lot of information on there. The amount varies depending on the watch list that's been included, but usually by reviewing this, it's enough to be like, yeah, that's the guy I'm working with, or no, that's definitely the wrong person. So you can say, yep, it's not my client, in which case you don't hear about this hit anymore. We will keep monitoring in the background for as long as that person is a customer or client of yours, but you can turn this off just by clicking on monitoring. And then if you press confirm, it will turn monitoring off. If it is your client, you can say, yes, this is my client. This will mark it as a true match to say, yes, this particular person who is at higher risk of fraud is my client. And then on our system, you'll be able to review a list of any true matches you have. So you can keep a list of any persons that you might want to keep a slightly closer eye on than your ordinary customer. Sorry, let me just go back to the thing. So that is the UK individual, which is probably the main one that you would think to look at. As I say, we do have the international individual check, which covers most of Europe, Australia, the US. So, most of the major countries you deal with, which works in a similar way, name and address, and it will try and find links. It can't pull back quite as much information because the credit reference agencies we have in the UK are quite thorough, but it will provide you enough, or it will say there isn't quite enough there. Please refer to another search. Usually, if I am speaking to people that we're working with, they quite often default to doing a smart doc, which is a passport check. So what this will do is it's an automatic check of the passport, sends a link out to your client, asks them to upload a photo of their passport and a selfie if you want facial recognition included. It will do the check and then get you the result. As I said previously, we also have business checks. So should you be brokering for a legal entity, whether it be a limited company, partnership, or anything, you can also do checks on those, which will include the ability to look at the business's credit data, their financials, their corporate structure, who their beneficial owner is, so you can see if they're sanctioned or not. And we also offer this internationally as well. Between the Smart Doc, so the passports and driving licenses, international business check, we cover over 200 countries. So it's very unlikely that you'd come across one we didn't cover. We also have a few other services, such as a digital fraud check, which looks at somebody's digital identity. The triple check is basically a combination of these three, which some of our clients used. It's typically used more in like the regulated sectors where they have to be quite more specific about what they do, but it would be there for all of our clients to use should they wish. It is the most comprehensive UK AML check available. And we can also even provide customizable risk assessments. Should you wish to send them out to your client, it will be created exactly as you would want. You can send it out to them with a link, they'll fill it in, and all the answers will be kept here, safe on our system, so you can download it or just come back to the system should you need it at a later date, and everything will be there ready to go. So that is our system. I'm more than happy to take any questions anybody may have.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, two questions, one of which has come to me privately, another one on the screen. The first one, you mentioned at the beginning about your view that as brokers, we did not make the threshold for high value dealers. On ABYA's advice, some of the boats that we are responsible for selling are in the millions. So what is that threshold? And
yeah, absolutely. So with ABYA, if you're not taking a cash payment, then it doesn't, quite often it doesn't meet the value, what the definition of a high value dealer is. But a high value dealer would be somebody who takes cash transactions of over 15,000 euros. If you do fall into that, you will have been advised to register with HMRC That's required as high value dealers are regulated by HMRC, and they have to follow the money laundering regulations. So the money laundering regulations are tighter about what needs to be reviewed. There's a lot more about the people that you're dealing with needing to have a greater understanding. So typically people who fall into that category we see do as a minimum for their clients the UK individual, so name and address verification and a smart doc, so they can confirm is the person they're dealing with a person, but also is the person they're dealing with the person that they say they are. So has the passport been provided by somebody who actually owns that passport? So there is further information you can do. Say if you do fall into the high value dealer, then the money laundering regulations is a really good place to start. But if you do have questions about that kind of thing, like I say, please feel free to reach out and ask. We do work with high value dealers as well as everything, so we do cover everything. And if you either work with a company who advises you on compliance or your MLRO, will say how you fall into that. But it is better to know where you fall along that line, to know what searches need to be done.
Okay, so the term high value dealer refers more to cash sums than necessarily the value of the asset that's being bought. Would that be correct?
Yes. As far as the legislation is concerned, it specifies cash transactions over 15,000.
Okay.
It doesn't specify if the transaction is a bank transfer, if it's higher than that. I would personally recommend people take a risk-based approach. So if you are doing transactions that are larger, even if it may not be specifically noted in legislation, do this. It is the much safer option for your business and yourself to do a little bit more rather than not do enough. But especially if it does come that you are regulated by HMRC, because when they do their audits, they will say, how are you meeting this? And if you say, well, didn't feel it was necessary, even though it was a £10 million yacht to somebody who I'd never met, they'll be like, well, why didn't you do those? So it will be something that, the question does get asked when these kinds of audits are done. Why didn't you try that? You could have done that. Why didn't you do it? And unfortunately, as times go on, the requirements for this are getting more and more stringent. So we're always adding new services and things to our line to help people meet this. But yeah, the way everything does seem to be going is just getting tighter and requiring more and more checks as things go on.
Okay, thank you. James typed a couple of questions in, but he's got his hand up anyway. So James, just unmute yourself and fire away.
Hi there, Sarah. Thanks for the presentation. That was really helpful. I inquired on this the other day because we already take people's identity and store it. Now, my understanding where we need to be on this is obviously identifying the customer and making sure they're not a pet or a sanctioned person, which is a risk to the managing director of the company and the business itself. But our other point, and I think this is where this is sort of stemmed from, is obviously we operate client accounts. And because of the transactions, though, as I said the other day, we'll only do the first holding deposit on a card, the rest of it we'll do with a bank transfer, is that obviously money laundering is something that we have to have an eye on, and apparently it's our responsibility. But from talking to your colleague the other day, the individual person check only does effectively 2 checks on that individual, whereas the smart check, and I may have this all wrong, equates to a 3-point check, which then covers you from a money laundering perspective.
So when it comes to the searches that you do, we have clients who will just do the name and address verification and clients who do both. It's mainly on a risk base. So if you do a name and address verification, because it requires a minimum of 2 pieces of data, and likely if you get a pass result, it's usually quite a bit more than that, usually see between 6 to 12 pieces of data, that will show that you have shown that the person is a person and you have done the PEP and sanction check. If you were working with someone that you felt was a slightly higher risk, the Smart Doc, which is the document verification, is an extra search that you can do on top. But the UK individual alone, if it's somebody that you feel fairly comfortable with, you feel like is pretty low risk, that is okay. I would always recommend looking to your own risk policies on what is appropriate when, but there is nothing wrong with doing a UK individual. Smart Doc is a great idea, but it's not needed in every single situation. So what I would say is use it as a case-by-case basis. If you're dealing with somebody who you feel is fairly low risk, a UK individual check will be okay. If there is anything that flags up, say they flag up as a politically exposed person, or you, even if it sounds weird, but even if you get that kind of bit of a weird vibe from them, or just something doesn't feel quite right, I always recommend doing a little bit more than a little bit less. Like you say, it does protect your managing director and your business, but it also gives you the peace of mind. You don't have to worry about this coming down the line to bite you, that you have done a check to verify. So that's what I'd say.
Great, thank you. There's a question in the chat, which I'll come to. Thomas, I have seen you. Mark Elliott's got his hand up from Williams and Smithers. Mark, just unmute and fire away. I'd love me to come around and do it for you.
There we go. Morning all. Hello again, Sarah.
Hello.
Two questions. If you do an international check, that has the Smart Doc system built into it because you have to put some form of formal ID in, don't you?
So if you do an international individual, that is just the name and address verification. There also is an option to use national ID. So for example, if you're working with somebody who is from China, they will have to have a national ID card. It's like a social security number in the US. So that number would be required there. But the international individual, that one is just the name and address. A Smart Doc is which is the document verification, is applicable no matter where the person lives. So I could say, so if they're UK or if they're international, either it's exactly the same. So that's the one which would do a document check. The UK individual and the international individual are just, well, I say just, they're checking names and addresses to see if there are links with credible sources that link that name and that address.
Okay, so actually on the international, there is no need to upload an ID card, a passport, driver's license. It doesn't do anything more than.
No, there's nothing unless you do a Smart Doc, you don't need to update. Don't need to upload any ID. It is looking specifically at the name and address. So we would say, be a little careful when putting in the name and address so that it matches how they input it, because you're trying to match what their mortgage, lease, whatever have. But it doesn't require you to upload a document. That it's only if you did the Smart Doc with it that you would need to upload a document.
Okay, and secondly, I've kind of been doing this since day one, but I've never deleted any of the old records. They've just sat there for years. Once a sale is complete, should we be deleting that? Should we keep that record, just leave it as it is? Is there anything going on in the background checking these people continually, or what point do we call it a day?
So they recommend checking for to see if the person you're working with is PEP sanctioned for the entirety of a business relationship. So if it's a sale, it's probably not a particularly long relationship. It doesn't hurt to keep it turned on. What we do in the background is we check every 24 hours to see if the person you've entered has been added to a list. So if you leave it on, it could be that in 3 years' time, you get an alert from somebody that you haven't worked with in 3 years to say, you might need to come in and view this. So that could take up a little bit of time if you thinking, oh, I've got to check going on.
Is it automatically on unless you turn it off? Or do you have to turn it on?
So it's automatically going to check. As soon as you do the search, it turns it on, and then we'll automatically check every day until you turn it off. We do that because, as I say, working through a wide number of sectors, the average length of a business relationship, it varies drastically. It can be turned off easily by just clicking the monitoring and off. If you want to look at turning off people on a more bulk way, if you email us at partnerships@smartsearch.com, and then we can take a look at that for you and speak to you more about that.
So from the point that we actually make that initial check and download and save that report, everything is still ticking on in the background. So let's say sale takes 3 months to complete. You could do another check. You just go into that individual and ask for a report, or do you pay again to get it?
So say the business relationship lasts for 3 months. You do the check on day one, so you know that person is a person and they haven't flagged up on a watch list. So every 24 hours for those 3 months, we will check to see if that person has popped up on the things. You don't need to redo the check. You've done the check at the start, so you know that person is a person. The only time that would happen is sometimes we have clients who have like 5-year-long relationships and they may check every 2 years or something. But if you're dealing with something that's less than a year, you don't need to redo the search unless something drastic changes. We will just keep checking in the background to see if they pop up. If they do, you'll get an email saying there's something to review. If you don't get an email, nothing's shown up. You don't need to worry about it. At the end of the 3 months, if you wish, the green monitoring button, if you click that and then confirm, it will stop the monitoring. There's no additional cost for the ongoing. It's just the one-off search to begin to do the UK individual, and that includes the PEP and sanction and the ongoing monitoring.
Super. Thank you very much.
Happy to help.
Thank you, Mark. Probably one that I'm going to ask Karen to comment on as well here in response to Thomas's question in Mallorca is, what's the cost for the average broker, what the terms are, annual, monthly, or per search? So, Karen, you've been working with these guys for a while now. Perhaps you can speak to that.
Yeah, so what we do is our relationship with SmartSearch is that we buy bulk searches from them. And what we do is charge the individual an annual membership fee. And that right now with that is £137.50. And then the searches range anywhere from £2 and 8 pence for domestic searches, and they can go up to, depending on the type of international search and how in depth that you want to go with it, it can go up to 258-ish pounds. So it depends on the search. A lot of them are domestic, so that's going to cost you about £2, just over £2, and then you will pay that per search. The way that we work it is that SmartSearch sends us an invoice at the end of each month, and we then in turn bill you individually, your company individually. So if there is just one person utilizing it out of the office, that's the £137.50 a year. If you've got 2 or more people, there's an extra £30 per person on an annual basis. I've shared with Alistair that we do have marketing material that we have submitted to the BRBA, and we will also include with that a price list so that you are also well aware of what the total costs are. But what I've given you is sort of a low to a high and what it's going to cost annually. This is really, aside from it being incredibly beneficial when applying for a pooled client account, the relationship with SmartSearch is incredibly important from that angle. It's also obviously covering you as a business, making sure that you've done all of your AML checks and you're covering yourself. But from a cost standpoint, we have found for our members that this is the most cost-effective way of providing our members a benefit without it being extortionate, in the sense that you may only do a couple of searches a month, in which case it's not gonna, you're not paying for a huge membership package with a, you know, extra fees on top of that. This is keeping your costs at a minimum. So but I'm more than happy, without, you know, taking up more of everybody's time, but I'm more than happy to share our price structure with your team, Alistair, as well as your members, and, you know, happy to answer any questions from it.
Yeah, thank you. We probably need to do a bit of thinking about whether BM's got the horsepower to do the billing and rebilling. So anybody who is a member of BM but not a member of ABYA, stand by, we'll get back to you. So to that end, there's two questions in the chat. Alex, maybe you could just ask yours specifically. If you can unmute your microphone and just read out your question.
Yeah, as it stands at the moment, do you need to be an ABYA member to utilise the ABYA SmartSearch account system?
As it stands right now, like we would absolutely welcome any of the BM members to partake in our membership program, but as it stands right now, this is a opportunity for us to again create a standardization within the industry, but also provide a benefit for all brokers out there. So I mean, I wouldn't be doing my job if I said, please be a member of ABYA. Like that like we hold value to that, and we sincerely think that there is value in becoming an ABYA member. But at this particular point in time, you do not need to be an ABYA member to be able to use our SmartSearch account. You can, we are happy to provide you with the same service that we provide our members, and enable you to utilize this service through us, so that we can also get you standardized and getting you some good coverage.
Thanks, Karen. James, I think that covers your question too. So with a minute to go, despite Sarah's little techie hiccup, we're bang on time. So thank you for that. Sarah, is there anything you want to add before we close?
No, just to say thank you all very much for your time. If any further questions pop up, you know, either you can direct them towards Karen or Alistair, but also please feel free to reach out to us, partnerships@smartsearch.com. For anybody who currently uses SmartSearch through the ABYA account. But if anyone is interested in looking at working at that, if they reach out to Karen and Kay, they will, you know, will speak to us about it if anyone needs to get set up or anything. And yeah, I would love to hopefully see you all with us, but I hope this at least has made you feel a little bit more informed about what the positioning is in terms of KYC and AML, and you know, where it stands for the yachting industry.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Karen, perhaps you'd just like to close for us.
Yeah, I just would like to thank everybody for coming. It's truly, truly appreciated. This is a really important subject, and it will definitely benefit your business, protect your company, and also give you more peace of mind. And we are really pleased with our relationship with SmartSearch, and I welcome you to ask us any questions that you might have, whether that's through Alistair, whether it's through Kay, whether it's through myself. We are here to help in any way we can. We hope that you've learned something from today, and yeah, to see you shortly in the future moving forward with this.
Great, thanks, Karen. Last in the webinar series is Thursday, a Q&A on the subject of the sales and purchase agreement that we issued jointly at the beginning of the year with ABYA. So if that's for you, we'll see you on Thursday. 66 people on this call, damn near a record. So thank you for that. And if sale and purchase agreement is a thing for you, we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.